Good evening, welcome to the stream this evening, and we shall carry on with doing some more on this portrait, which will be hair, I think. Okay, let's get. Yeah, that is a little bit. As you're doing this, resin tends to build up on the bottom of the pen, and it gets a bit sticky, or it sort of it feels rough when you're dragging it over the wood. So just needs to be gently cleaned off on a just normal tissue paper. Will do fine. Okay, right, let's see if we can get some more of the hair. Castan, good evening. Welcome to the studio. Nice to see you. I'm working on hair here, which is one of the challenging aspects about working with pyrography. It's a little bit awkward trying to get hair textures. Oh, it is for me anyway. Other pyrographic artists may have no problem at all with it, but I do. I also do tend to dot around a lot while I'm doing this. And just to give my eyes a different perspective on things. So I'm not particularly finishing any given area, I just keep going back over different areas. So here I'm just outlining a dark section of hair, which I'll then go and basically fill in. So the challenge is really all about getting something that looks like hair without drawing every single strand of hair. I'm only loosely following the reference picture in doing the hair. So dark and lighter areas as per the reference picture and the odd bit, but not generally speaking being really exact to it. Because of the all the curves and shapes involved, but it's not really necessary. It's the general style and shading that will matter more in this particular case. Because anybody who sees it that knows the person is if the hairstyle is roughly accurate, they won't really notice detail differences. If I got the hairstyle completely wrong, like you did, I don't know, a side parting or something, it would look odd, people will notice it. But yeah, if I don't get exactly matched to the photograph, nobody's going to know. I mean, how often does your hair, when you comb it, for example, fall in exactly the same position every time? Ah dear. Why, when it's only playing music, does media player have to crash? Obviously no reason for it that I know of. I mean, obviously there's a bug, but it's been around for years. Windows 7, Windows 8, never crashed. Windows 10, just about every time. Now this area of hair is principally a lot darker than some of the other areas, mainly because it's in shadow, not for any other particular reason than that. It's kind of looking a little bit odd. I'm hoping it will look better as we carry on. Some of it will need shading first. That's some of it. It just makes everything look really wide until you've got some of the shading in. Of course, this is just the edges of the hair, so it's just weird the way that pictures come together sometimes. Little Key. Sorry, Little Key, thank you very much for the follow. That's very kind of you. Sorry, I'm kind of really quiet tonight. I'm a little bit tired. Actually, I'm a little bit tired. Quite a bit tired, and I'm just concentrating on this, and I just get lost in what I'm doing, and then I just don't realise that anybody is watching. And whilst usually what I'm often doing is just talking while I'm doing it, saying what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and when I get lost in it, I completely forget and just go quiet. So it's just it just becomes me doing some art or some craft, and I completely forget that the purpose is for people to watch as well. So hair for pyrography can be quite challenging, or at least for me. I can do this reasonably easily with an airbrush, and in theory quite a few of the same techniques should apply, but don't quite. Mainly because, of course, airbrush paint, even transparent paint, is actually more precise than this is. So I can sort of lay down with an airbrush two strands, one over the top of the other, and the overlap will get darker, more solid. Quite often with pyrography, when you do that, the two just blend together. They don't overlay quite. Whereas, I mean, pyrography often is, one layer over the top of another layer to make it go darker, but when they're close to each other, heat spreads and it basically often just merges together into a flat colour. That makes it more of a challenge, and that's it's more of a challenge for me, shall I say, and that's what I'm trying to do here. Well, this is a darker area of hair. I am trying to not just turn it into a solid blob, but actually keep some form of hair texture or hair-like texture as I work my way through it. And it's not doing too bad. I'm possibly going to do some more work on it, but at least it does look like hair, which is actually amazing me quite much. It looks less like hair in person than it does on screen, but I am within about 8 inches to a foot, so I can see every single line, whereas when you step back you see more of the shapes, and that's what the camera's seeing. Of course, it's stepped back a little bit, so whilst the camera is slightly further away than me, just the way the camera is made makes it look as though it's about 6 feet away. So you're looking at it from 6 feet and you see a slightly different perspective on the image. And I often actually, while I'm working, will work looking at my monitor rather than at the piece, just because I get that 6 foot away vision whilst I'm working on it, which is quite useful at times. So I'm working more like I've got a graphics tablet than I have got a pyrographic pen, but I'm also working from a low resolution reference image, which doesn't help because the hair looks all frizzy. when you blow up a low resolution image, especially of hair, it goes all sort of frizzy and fuzzy looking. It's a real sort of weird thing. And that's what I've got next to me here, and I'm trying to interpret sort of hair direction and style from that. Right, so now the dark hair. That's okay. The transition is from the dark to the light is it's quite smooth, but it's sort of banded a little bit. It's to do with angles and the way the flash has bounced off the hair. But you can sort of see bands in the reference image. Got to be a little bit careful. As I say, some of that will be artifact. I am expecting a lot more graduation, and I will sort of graduate it a little bit better, smooth it out a bit. Because even if it is truly in the reference image, people really don't often expect to see it, and therefore it looks odd. Lost in House, how are you doing? What time will I be streaming to? About another hour, and then that'll be about it. But nice to see you again. You've been busy. You got partner yet? I notice you do seem to have thousands of followers these days. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind. I will stop about 10 o'clock, give or take a couple of minutes, but House Love Family. Yeah, you sounds like you're competing a little bit there with T-Love. Claire, good evening. Hello, welcome as well. Nice to see you all again. Okay, well that's very kind of you, Lost. Thank you very much. Have they arrived, Claire? That's good. Do they look like proper rings? Not sort of weird clasp things? Oh. It is nice having you two back again. You can see me try and hopefully not make a mess of trying to get hair to look like hair. And I'm not very good at hair. One of the reasons for practicing, of course, is or rather, I shall say I'm not very good at hair by my standard. Yeah, he does dispatch quite quickly, even without special delivery or anything like that. Well, hopefully now they'll feel better to work with, and you'll enjoy working with the rings more. Yeah, that's all I do these days. It comes through just as almost just as quickly. So much darker. How'd you like the colour now that you actually see it in person? You ordered 10 PM Wednesday. Yeah, next day's dispatch, you see. Packed it the next morning, sent it straight off, and there you go. You don't want to waste it. No, I kind of feel that way. It's kind of a special... Well, it's a special colour, obviously, because it's a limited edition, but it's a really nice colour. Mind you, I have to say that all the other rings are really nice colours. I'm a sucker for saturated colours. You know, the reds and the greens and the blues. I'm just a sucker for saturated colour, but and they look so nice and shiny. But the pale ones are also absolutely beautiful, especially when you put them together. You want to hide it and never use it. Yeah. It's weird. As you know, I said the other day, I'm keeping my dark rose for another one of the cuffs, and just in case anybody has no idea what Claire and I are talking about, I'm going to use this as a time to just... We're actually talking about this particular colour. This has got purple underneath it, but and yes, I know they look blue, but that's the camera. This is the dark rose colour. It's an absolutely lovely. It's a purplish pink is about the easiest way I can describe it. It's a rich pinky dark rose colour. Hence the name, I guess. And it's such a nice special looking colour that I've got a set of rings that are long enough. That's enough to make another one of these, and that's what I'm kind of reserving them for. I'm not using them for anything else, and yet I kind of don't want to use them. I want to keep them to use them for something special, which is what this is, but it's a bit weird. I want to keep it for something special. This is special, but I don't want to sell another one of these because I want to keep the rings for something special. Just me being a bit weird. You've hidden 700 to discuss. Yeah. Well, that's about 600 in there. It's absolutely really amazing how the rings add up in terms of quantity. You know, 600. Sorry, I was talking about 600 dark rose, but then there's the purple, so another 600 of those. You've in excess of 1200 rings in this cuff. It takes something like about 10 hours to put together that many rings, but yeah, yes, it is gorgeous. You've got 200 to play with. You won't find it goes too far. Your half Persians will go further than Byzantine or box. Some of the candy canes halfway in the middle. Of course, if you get into some of the European 6-in-1 or 4-in-1 sheets, they go quite quickly. The Viper berries aren't too bad as well. 2-colour Viper berries. Oops. Relatively easy to work with, but that allows you to split the colours. Actually, he says thinking what dark rose and purple, because that dark rose and that purple go together really nice. Viper berries in dark rose and purple. You can do box. If you can do box, you can do Byzantine. So if you do Byzantine, you can do variations on Byzantine, and there's a few. I mean that's a variation on Byzantine. 2 Byzantine blocks between the hearts. There's various variations depending on the size of rings. These are double linked, You can single link it, triple link it, for example, between the Byzantine blocks. You can do colour splits, different colours. You can even split the Byzantine block itself into sort of two different, or even 4 different colours. And one of the things that I keep meaning to do with the box, for example, is use 4 different colours of rings making the box. So you could have black down one side, white down another, red down another, green down another, for example. Or if you rotate them each time, especially if you use the square box rather than the rectangular, but if you rotate them, you can get a quad spiral going, or a twin helix, which was the one of my yellow and silver is a twin helix. In fact, it's a box. One of them is a box, he says. Purple and black ice. Yeah, that sounds like a nice combination. 530 seconds, 730 seconds. Oh, you see you're in quite large rings. Yeah. Yeah. 530 seconds. 3/16. Yeah, 6. 18 gauge. Okay, yeah. I tend to think I tend to think more in size of gauges, like they're 6/30 seconds, but or 3/16, but they're 19 gauge. Yeah, I do like well, it doesn't sound a lot of difference between a 19 gauge and an 18 gauge, but when you look at the rings, they seem quite a bit thicker in metal. And once you start with all this stuff, you end up with desks covered in jewellery. This is a Persian. Full Persian in this particular case, rather than a half. Full Persian isn't as difficult to do as a half Persian, but it takes a little bit, and there's some variations on that, but the thing I like about this one, or the thing that I notice about this one, of course, is it's the green side is like lots of little chevrons pointing to the right, and that you turn it halfway, a quarter turn, and you've got lots of red chevrons going the opposite way, and I kind of just find that amusing. And there are versions of this where you get the chevrons going in the same direction, which is quite an interesting variation. Which I want to try one of these days. There are so many different not a half Persian object, but just so many variations of the ways you can put rings together. You wouldn't account for it, but you think of a ring and it can only pass through so many others, but there are thousands, if not tens of thousands, of different combination styles of making chain, of making sheets, flat sheets and things like that, in all sorts of patterns. So flat sheets, jewellery wise, would be like the cuff that I made, and they're all beautiful. Some I will say some are more beautiful than others. There are some that look like somebody's just taken a pile of rings and gone boom, but which are not necessarily my favourite. Some of the raggedy loop ones, but they're all fun to try, and then they make. He says advertising. They make absolutely fantastic jewellery, and then you can slight variations. Here you go, Claire. A slight variation. This is a sort of a simple. It's a Japanese style actually of weaving the rings together. I tend to call it a lace. It's not. It's, I forget what it is. Japanese 4-in-1, I think. But when you put it together with crystals like this, such that it sparkles. They're absolutely beautiful. You're marking the rings. How do I not mark them? Make sure your pliers, carefully basically, make sure your pliers are flat. I'm sure they are, the smooth ones. Probably what you're most likely doing at this point in time, if assuming you're not slipping off, is, well, a couple of things that's probably happening. You may be gripping too tight. If you grip really tight, you squash the rings, which marks them. They are aluminium after all, and you can put a lot of force on with these sorts of pliers. The other one is to try, if you can avoid it a lot of the time, try and avoid using just the tip. He says, I've got a ring around here somewhere. I know I've got a ring around here somewhere because I picked it up off the floor not so long ago. He says, I can't find the ring I had. Oh, I've got a test. Actually, that's not a test link. That's a section off a bracelet. Let me find a. Okay, that's all. One of the things to try and avoid, if you can, is burning yourself on a pen. I'm going to have to get a magnifying glass. When you're working with the rings, if you can, you see how I'm holding that with the real points of the two. What that will do is pressure per square inch. There's a lot more pressure on those points, and so and because of their points, you have to actually squeeze a lot harder. You're more likely to twist and bend the ring in an odd way that way. If you can hold your rings more like that, if you've got room to do it, hold your rings like that. You spread the load out basically. You don't actually need to hold them as tight. You do sometimes where you need to get in. You've got to sort of use the points, but try and go further back. As try and stay away from the very tips, because you put a lot of pressure on, you are likely to squeeze them. And with some of the red, which is the way in which it is, it makes it more likely for you to actually cause it to flake off, because it's a harder coating on the reds. But if you can sort of spread the load a lot more, it will help, because you don't actually need to grip it that tight. You really only are stopping it sliding about more than anything. And what you'll find is probably that hand, or if you're left-handed, the other, I guess, the hand that you manipulate the rings with, you tend not to do it two-handed. So if I'm twisting this ring, I won't tend to use both hands. I'll tend to hold one still and manipulate the ring with the other, and that's the one that you need to have a slightly firmer grip on, because of course you're doing most of the twisting. But I can do this without squeezing, and it's a bit of practice. But you kind of need to learn to relax a little bit, otherwise after about 20 minutes your hands will be really tired and sore. If you still continue to mark them, one of the things just to check is that if you run your finger over the edge of the pliers, it's not raised, it's flat. Sometimes the way these things have got made, the edge is curled up slightly, if you like, and when you run your finger across there, you can feel like a sharp edge. You shouldn't. If you do, a small file, if you've got one, if you haven't got one, like a metal nail file will do the job, or emery paper, not sandpaper but emery paper, just to try and take that edge off. If it won't go, another way to do it is to take a piece of tape and just stick a piece of tape on both sides. The insulation type tape, electrician's tape, is slightly better. It's slightly thicker than sellotape would be, or parcel tape, which gives a little bit of a cushion. and that may help you as well. But it does mean your pliers don't quite close properly, but with the size of rings that you're working at, that shouldn't be a problem. But really, it's practice. So you might want to practice not on your dark rose. Hopefully that helped, Claire. I shall go back to pyrography, which hopefully is what people are watching tonight, rather than me doing jewellery. I'm just getting rid of the hairs, cat hairs. We have 3. 2 of them visit the desk, usually not when there's a stream running, but fairly regularly, and when the hair gets near this hot tip. If you've ever smelt burning hair, it's not pleasant. You hijacked the stream again. Yeah, that's twice you've done it, isn't it? Turned. I think last time it was carving into a jewellery lesson, but now don't forget though, if you start making tens of thousands of pounds from your jewellery, I want a little bit of commission for teaching you this. Nah, don't worry about it, Claire. You don't need to say sorry. If I didn't want to have told you, I'd have turned around and said, sorry, I'm not telling you, or I can't tell you, or I don't know. And if I don't know, by the way, I'll say I don't know. But I don't mind. I mean, it's part of the fun of it, and you know, I part of the reason for me doing the crafting on stream is to show and let people ask questions. I mean, not a lot of people have seen pyrography. Not a lot of people have seen jewellery being made, whether it's beadwork or whether it's stringing or whether it's the rings, and it inspires people. I wish it would inspire them to buy stuff as well, but I mean, one of the things, one of the reasons for doing some of the stuff like the commission here on stream is that this is something like 20-30 hours worth of work, and people who see it generally will see a time lapse where it takes 20 minutes and then can't understand why something like this costs a fair bit of money. Same with you cutting the paper. It looks like you've taken a pair of scissors and just cut something out, and it's taken 10-15 hours to do a cut, and they just don't understand why it's worth that sort of money. So by doing it live, and alright, I've been hijacked, but so I don't mind, and I don't mind people asking. Plus it gives me something to talk about. Because at the moment, for some reason, I'm really... Well, I do know why. With all the stuff going at work, I get quite tired on an evening now. And with the possibility of losing a job as well, I kind of am not particularly feeling all that talkative. But when people ask questions, I then will probably talk for the next 30 minutes. You won't be able to shut me up. So I seriously don't mind people asking questions about what I'm doing. And if there's any trolls out there thinking of doing so, I'm not particularly tolerant. I'm patient, but I'm not tolerant. You probably can't say anything that bothers me. And at the first time you show any signs of messing around, one click and you're gone. I don't do that very often. You snapped a ring. Yeah. One of the things, if you work it too much, if you twist it too much, there's a limit. It's called, as you twist it, it gets stiffer. It's called work hardening. And you will sometimes do that a little bit, and if you watch some of the people doing rings, you'll see them twist backwards and forwards a little bit, and that's one of the side effects of doing that, as well as helping them line up, is it work hardens the the bit where the ring twists, which means it tends to stay in position where you've put it more. But you get to a point where it's too much. I know you quite often see on demonstrations people will twist a ring like a full quarter turn. I tend not to do that. It does work hard and quite a lot in doing that, and you don't necessarily have much leeway afterwards. I tend to just open it enough, and enough's a bit of a vague definition, but as you get used to, most of the time all you want to do is to be able to pass it through one more ring, and sometimes opening it with too wide a gap really makes it awkward. But you could just have just had a ring that just happened to be weak in that position. I don't have them too many, but occasionally I'll just start to twist one and it'll just ping, just fall apart. I suspect they're probably ones that are near the end of a coil when they've been made or something like that, but yeah, it happens. You're using in a box, so it's more rectangular. Yeah, it's a rectangular box, or an asymmetric square, or what's a square? A square is a rectangle with equal sides. What's a box? A box. Well, I have just spent several weeks packing boxes, 2 foot by 18 inches. It's a box. It's rectangular. In fact, you could describe what you are doing more of a rectangular tube rather than a box, but I can smell beef crisps. Actually, I can smell beef. What's it? What do you call those crisps? A particular in the tube. Yeah, I can remember. Once you pop, you can't stop. The catchphrase. I'm trying to think what they're called now. I think Lady Zara is eating some somewhere, because I can smell them. Smell the beef ones. They're really nice. That's the one. Thank you, Pringles. I kept thinking Doritos because I tend to eat Doritos, even though I like the Pringles. But a bag of, I mean a bag. I don't mean a bag. I mean a bag of Doritos seems to last a lot longer with me than a box of Pringles. They're a bit like, for me, they're a bit like KP Crisps. KP, this is a long time ago. I used to have KP Crisps at school because I always used to find them the ones with the most flavour. I used to like the beef, but with the most flavour, and Pringles are kind of the same. Don't think you get KP Crisps anymore. It's things like Walkers, and I don't really. It's almost like sometimes they don't have very much flavour on, or somebody's forgotten to. I know they don't shake it in the back, but yeah, forgotten to put some on. Black, purple and black, yeah. Can you imagine that? I haven't tried anything with the black ice yet. But I got surprised when I tried, the yellow and silver. I don't know what possessed me to try it. I did. I was looking at the yellow colour and thinking, I really like that yellow. I'd like to do something with it. And I was trying to think of a colour to go with it. But I just happened to have some silver rings on my desk, so I put the two together and thought, I just literally, it's 2 piles on the desk, and thought, they look really nice. So I put that together, and I did another 3, I think 3 after that, different styles, because I just really like the colour combination. But I think with these rings being shiny, really shiny and rich colours, even the pale ones, they just go together so much that you can almost take any colour ring you like and put them together, I mean, I suspect the pale ones look better with the pale colours, but there again, there's bright yellow in here, and they just seem to blend together. Doesn't matter. I think you could almost sort of take. Well, I mean, you might think red and green are sort of clashing colours, and yet they just go together. No matter what, it's almost kind of like no matter what you do, you get, like blue and yellow. I mean, these are neoprene rings, so this is stretchy. It stretches, but blue and yellow, it works. Blue and red works. I don't know, there's something about it. It's I've got some. I think you might have seen them, but this dark blue and light blue, sky blue, royal blue, sky blue, green and black. They just come together. Yeah. Silver and again neoprene sky blue rings. You almost cannot do anything wrong. That's red, green and purple. So I'm just digging in a bag of stock here, but I think that is one of the nice things about the colours that are available. Are just absolutely fantastic to go together. It'll be your favourite combo until you do the next one, and then when you do the next one, that'll be your favourite, and so on. And that's before you start combining colours in the one bracelet. You're doing a block and then a block and a different block. And right. Okay. Whilst I try and just blend this hair a bit, there's the picture from which this is based was being done with a full face flash, so it's standard iPhone type camera, point and shoot camera. And one of the things it tends to do with hair is things like on your forehead, because hair over your forehead is quite thin relatively speaking, even if you're not going bald like I am. So it tends to disappear very much, but then just as soon as you get away from the flash it goes dark really quickly, because of course you're looking through more hair, and so you get some this sort of almost odd looking effect. And it tends not to look fantastically realistic. Of course, when you take a photograph, it looks real because people believe the photograph, even if it looks odd. And quite often they can spend a lot of time looking at a photograph trying to work out why there's something wrong with it, but they can't see it. And yet you do the same thing on something like this, and somebody will immediately say to you, "That's wrong." No, it's not. But it kind of is. So what we often have to do, those of us who often do portraits, I guess, and here I'm speaking for other people when I shouldn't be, but you kind of sometimes do things that should be. Rather, one of the tenets, one of the rules, the unbreaking, whatever. When you're doing painting, artistry, imagery, it's it's paint what you see, not what you think, or paragraph what you see, adapt it for whatever, carve what you see, not what you think, because what you think fools you into doing things wrongly. But sometimes you actually have to do what you think rather than what you see, because what you see means everybody goes, "It's wrong," when it's not. Oh, it is a nice colour combination. because it's not quite black. So you know, with the dark ice rings. Yeah, you. Couple of things, Claire. I was about to say yes, you are gripping. It looks like you're gripping them, you know, squeezing them too hard. But some of those marks look like you've got serration, you've got teeth on your pliers, rather than being flat. Just look at a couple of those. It's a bit like there's teeth. Because I'm looking at the picture, I can see like little tiny ridges. No, okay. Obviously, I'm not going to disagree with you, but yeah, it potentially looks like you're holding on too tight, and or just possibly the edges have got a little bit sharp, and they're digging in because I can see sort of two. On at least more than one of the rings, I can see sort of a mark which is kind of like you've held it like that at the 3 and 9 o'clock position to the opening, and it looks like it's been squeezed. Yeah. The you only really need to hold them enough to stop them slipping, and you'd be surprised how little. Because you're twisting. The only time you need to grip a little bit harder is as you close that gap. So you actually, instead of twisting, you're pushing them together. That's about the only time you need to apply much pressure, and that's really just to stop it slipping in the pliers, because sometimes slipping will cause them to scratch. But when you're twisting, you really don't need a lot of pressure, because yeah, think of when you've seen me open rings with this. There's no pressure at all. It's held by the fact that it can't physically turn in the slot. And when you're twisting a ring, if you hold it in the jaws, it can't physically turn in the slot. So it becomes more important to hold tight the closer you get to the tip, because it's very easy to just ping off. And that will tend to scratch, or because you just literally haven't got the room to get in. But yeah, relax a little bit, and you might. Well, hopefully you'll do it a lot better. Yeah, it makes for opening things a lot quicker, and just saves you having to pick up and put down pliers. It's weird. I mean, I can go through opening rings relatively quickly with this. You just pick them up, twist, put them down, and so on. But when I always find it when I'm using 2 pliers, I'm always trying to get it into the right position. So I'll spend ages sort of positioning the rings in the pliers, whereas with this they just sort of slap them in and twist, and you know, neither do any damage to the ring, but you just don't need to position the pliers to use this, and it's weird. Right, back to my yeah. Relax a little. yeah, I need to darken this off a little bit and just blend that colour in a little bit. It's not strictly accurate to blend it in a little bit, but I will do. It will look better. This lady's actually got quite fine hair, but just the lighting on it makes it look quite thick. Okay, just do a little bit of sort of rough marking for myself. That earring isn't big enough. So I've got some around there and about there. Yeah. And then just this just really just comes. So I'm kind of talking to myself. I do this a lot, not only when I'm on stream where I get away with it because I'm talking to you guys, but I often do it when I'm working by myself. Do I should keep trying. Yeah. One useful tip, especially if you're working on a desk, because when you drop them they bounce, is you can get beading mats actually, which is it's a bit like soft fibre. This has got nothing. You know, I've got this, which I think was a curtain. This is kind of like a velvet sort of thing. It's a bit similar to beige that they put on billiard tables and things. But when you drop a ring on, he says, I haven't got one to drop, and if I did, it probably ain't going to work. But they don't tend to bounce as much, or even bounce at all. They'll just drop. And the thing about this is not felt. Don't use felt; it'll drive you potty. The rings don't catch. you know, because you've opened them, they don't catch because there's no sort of fibres. This sort of stuff is sort of stuck straight up, and so they don't tend to catch when you're working with them. So if you're trying to pick one up, you can just pick it up. And the beading mats are kind of the same. They're designed not to catch the beads, so when you're sticking a needle in and to pick up a bead, it doesn't catch you know, a loop or a little thread and ping the bead off all over the place. So that sort of thing, just like an add-on afterwards. If not, any sort of soft material will help, but it might tend to catch as you're working it, which sometimes drives you potty. Oh, okay, didn't notice. That's what it's picturing. Oh, okay, yeah, it is. I hadn't noticed. Sorry. There you see. Giving out advice when you've already. I keep meaning to buy myself one, to be honest, and I keep forgetting. For that very reason, that works quite well. But it's a small. It's a small piece. Now then, what I was doing here was just giving myself sort of some really rough lines that you will see sort of vaguely on screen, just to give me an idea of the hair flows and where some of the darker areas are, like around there, just so I can lay out some of the texture of the hair. So you can get away with quite a lot, and here actually the wood texture is helping, because there's the grain of the wood. In fact, I can feel the tool catching in the grain as I'm working this, but it helps because it creates a line or a curve, which it helps give you the impression that you see a little bit of hair, rather than it just being, you know, like this. That wouldn't particularly fool you into thinking there was hair there, because you kind of expect to see light and dark areas and things like that. So yeah, well, my wood is my wood is desk. My desk is wood, but they still bounce quite a lot. But yeah, glass I can understand. Yeah, but that's going onto eBay and actually making an order and buying it. It's one of those things that if I happen to be making an order and I see it, I'll get one next. You know, kind of the next time. But I got that, and I don't drop them as much these days on this desk. One of the nicer uses, or you know, one of the reasons to use it more would be the fact that you can, you know, just slide a board under it, for example, pick it up and move it. I can't do that. When I've put all the rings, if I've just opened 150 rings on the desk, and I go, want to do something else or go to bed, or I'm not going to leave 150 rings out, not with our cats around. They'd be all over the place, and I mean all over, because they'll catch in their fur and they'll go, ooh, shiny things, shiny things. and they will be all over. I'll have about 10 rings left when I'll be able to find them, and then I'll find the other 100 over the next 6 months. So yeah, something like that would be great to pick them up. Yeah, you're right. It is being lazy. It definitely is. It's like I have got to photograph that and put it in the shop, and I haven't. And all I got to do is take a couple of photographs and write up the description for the shop, but I haven't done it. By the way, if anybody would like to buy this on Etsy, just drop me a message on Etsy. and then they can be made. If I haven't managed to put it in the shop by then. But it's it's the same with the website zaragonart.com. I've got a lot of stuff to go up there about some of the images that I'm doing. So like the last one, the lion, for example, isn't up there yet. And some of the explanations, and there's a shop there as well, but it's not. I've not stocked it too well at the moment. And again, it's just actually doing it. But when I come home from work, 5-6 o'clock, it's been a relatively stressful day. I sit down, I'll talk to Lady Zara for a while, and all of a sudden it's 10 to 8. And then I'm streaming and for a couple of hours, and then it's 10 o'clock, and I'll sit down because it's quite warm here in the studio. I'll have a cool drink, and it's kind of 11 o'clock, and it's time to go to bed. So, and weekends at the moment have been heavily tied up with getting stuff out of the way for the new studio. So it literally has sort of been kind of work 7 days a week, and things like buying stuff like that or doing stuff for the website has had to take sort of a back seat. Does it? Yes and no is your answer. It doesn't cost you to be a member, it doesn't cost you to have the shop, it costs you insertion fees basically. So you pay to list something, and then you pay a percentage of what's purchased, and you pay a percentage on the money transfer. It's a hard media is Etsy, as is many of the online stores. Gus4, thank you very much for following. Just because there's a lot of people on there, and expensive, average. It's sort of comparable with eBay, if you like, or PayPal for the money and things like that. But it's like everything. It's the expense of a storefront is what is. It might not be obvious to people, but expenses like storefront, tools, all get put into the price of whatever you buy. Doesn't matter whether you're buying curtains, pictures, cars. All these costs are built in. When you get something free, free gift with your, you're not. You're still paying for it. At some point, the money that you've paid for whatever it is pays for everything. So expensive. It depends if you get the payback. If you don't sell anything, then it's expensive. If you sell 10 million, it's not. It's that sort of thing. You have to weigh up the lots of other things. Does it have your target market? Does it have do the people that are going to buy your things look there? What other competitors do you have on the shop? Can you describe your things in such a way that people who are looking for things will come across your stuff more often than everybody else? And it's the same sort of question no matter where you sell something, whether you sell it by word of mouth, you put advertisements in papers, shop fronts, sell it in a shop. These are all the same sorts of questions that you end up having to answer, but expensive? Not really. There are more expensive ones out there. I did come across one that wanted, I think they wanted £500 to join, and then they took 25% of the sale. And of course, all that meant was stuff that was on it was sort of had a markup on it of, what would that be? About 15% markup or something, above what they'd normally sell it at somewhere else. But whether or not it was being worse on that, I don't know. You did have had to have the £500 to start with. But has this music crashed again? Yeah, it is crazy, but for some people it works. It's exclusive, so yeah. And there is there's an odd thing with people where something's exclusive. It's like the Harrods factor. It's exclusive. You know Harrods. Imagine probably do a lot of people. There's an apparent sort of exclusive thing about Harrods. It used to be the posh person's store, and therefore the fact that things are in it, you could buy the same thing cheaper elsewhere, never just comes into it. It's Harrods. It's exclusive. It's got to be good. You go into Harrods these days. I don't know if you have. It's full of tourists. You don't find any posh people in Harrods. I think if there were really posh people in Harrods, it probably means that they closed the store for them, and it's sort of after hours. But yeah, up market. Well, depends your target market. I'm talking about really up market. Really silly sort of things. It's kind of. I suppose in the UK you call it the footballer syndrome. People who have more money than. She says, I'd love them to buy my stuff, and I'm about to say more money than sense, which isn't exactly true, but they have a lot of disposable income, and they're more disposed to spending that income, and they are, they look for things which are unusual. And the sort of thing you see happen is if you can catch the eye of that sort of market, then you sell a lot at a decent, really decent price, because it's exclusive, and also it sounds daft in a way, but there seems to be more of an appreciation of the effort that's gone into it, perhaps because of just the fact that they can spend the money. It doesn't matter as much to them, but he says yeah, by which I mean normal people do tend to normal other people do, I suppose. He's digging. I'm digging now, aren't I? I should shut up. I appreciate anybody who looks at anything of mine. And if they choose to buy it, that's even more fantastic. Right, pyrography. Maybe we should show some more what I can do without yeah. I'm trying here, really trying not to actually do individual hairs. That is sort of a technique that can be used. I've done it with the when I do the cats. When I did both the cats, I literally didn't draw every single hair, but it was done simulating that sort of thing by drawing individual strokes to represent a single hair. I'm trying not to do that as much, because it's incredibly slow to do that. It looks really good, but it's incredibly slow, and also on something this size it would take lots and lots of hours. So that what I'm trying to do here is use the colour shading more. So if I do a sort of fairly thick line like that, and then do another one just alongside, like that, and I'm now trying a bit too hard, but just by using broader strokes I can get hair textures in them. You look at that and it's kind of like there's just a little bit of a gap between two hairs. You're seeing darker in between. Yeah, baby blank, yeah. By that, yeah. Then he does. There is a lot of work goes into it, and there's a lot of different work goes into things with when things are handmade as opposed to machine made, which makes quite a lot of things difficult. I mean, in principle, I can make a portrait like this using a laser scan, a laser cutter. It wouldn't look the same, but I can do an image from a photograph and it'll take 20 minutes. Actually, take 20 minutes to prepare it, probably about 3 hours to print it, but not quite the same thing as a hand-created image. The stuff that you do, there are quicker ways of producing an output, but it's not quite the same. And yeah, you get people sort of doing their £3. I mean, sometimes people are just trying it on, but when they're saying I'm not buying that because it's £3 down the road, or it's really a case of, and I have had the discussion before. Yeah, well, I kind of avoided saying that just so I didn't give people ideas. I've kind of had the discussion before with people. They'll come up to you and I don't know. You'll get. I'm trying to think of the last one I had. I don't know. I'll make it up then. You've heard a fella who's a lawyer, gets paid lots of pounds per hour, comes along and looks at a piece of jewellery and says, I don't think that's worth £12, £14, whatever it was. I'd give you 3 or 4 quid for it. And the answer to them basically is, that's no problem. You think it's only worth £3 or £4. It's taken me an hour or so to make, and obviously you then would give me legal services for the same, £3 or £4 an hour. And of course the quite often the answer is no, that it took me a lot of training, and would you like to try bending one of these rings, or here's 5 rings, start that. And I've had somebody try, but they look at it, and what the clay, the box for example, is. With a bit of practice, it's easy, but if you haven't got the practice or you haven't got something to study, it's really hard to do. And people just, your time is worth nothing, my time is worth a lot, and that's something you really can't get over. Yeah, my machine can do that. Yeah. I mean, it's a discussion 3D and I have had. One of the things that he does, and I do it as well, and I do it, for things like portraits, is when I'm doing airbrushing, I will project the reference. If it's a reference image, I'll project the reference image. If it's something that I've drawn, I'll project the drawing onto the canvas. And then I will do a sketch on the canvas, I mean, like I did this from the reference picture. I put down a trace, which really basically was just an outline an eye there and a mouth there, and that almost literally was it. It's just to help with the placings. Everything else from then is hand done on the image, and it's the same with the airbrushing. You've got, it just helps you place things on the canvas rather than spending sort of 2 or 3 days almost sometimes drawing it, erasing it, drawing it, erasing it. You've already drawn it once, just project it. You've done the work. It's just a method of speeding up, and people go, oh, you're cheating, you've projected it. No problem, here's an airbrush, you draw it, you go ahead and do it. If I'm only colouring in, you can colour in, and that's the image isn't, laying the image isn't really the skill in that particular case. It's the overlay, it's the colour overlay. Same with this, it's the skill of using the tool. And you can have some pyrographers and airbrush artists which are highly skilled at the craft, but they can't draw. I can't draw people that well. I can draw other things better. But you can be highly skilled in one, but so why should it limit you? Indeed, it's exactly the same thing. You're writing a book, but you're doing it on a computer. You're cheating. You're not writing. Did you make your own ink? Did you craft your own? Did you craft your own pliers? You're cheating. You're using a tool. The projection is a tool. The trace down is a tool. The tip of the iron's a tool. You've still got to have, as you say, you've still got to have the skill in the execution of whatever it is you're doing. If fair enough, if you say, I drew this out on the canvas by myself, completely unaided, and then coloured it in, and you projected it, fair enough. That's not on. I have no bones about saying it was in this case it was a trace down image, but it was a trace down of the outline. I'll happily explain what it is, and I've even still got the outline that I did on another piece of paper. I've, like with the lion, I've got the drawing. I actually drew it on the wood afterwards, but I've actually got the first pencil drawing that I was trying to do. And if it had come out right, I'd have traced it down as it is. It was about right, but not quite, so I did it straight on the wood. But I don't have a problem with that. People using a recipe, you're trying to remember all the ingredients. What's wrong with writing them down? As you say, it's the combination, it's the doing, where the skill is, and as long as you don't misrepresent that skill, and some people do, then I don't have a problem. And I don't think other people should as well, because one thing is, if I had to draw this or draw on a canvas, same with 3D I guess, and it takes you 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, 10 hours, because a drawing takes time, and getting a good drawing on a large canvas, it takes harder time, because the larger it is, the harder it's to see. Then you say to somebody, okay, well that's just added £200 to your to the bit that you wanted. And they don't want to pay it, because that drawing is completely painted, they don't see it, it's gone, and in my case I erase it as I work through it, but they've had to pay for it, and it's kind of like, but they're not getting that, they're getting what's on top. So in your case with the recipe, they're not paying for people to go, was it a pound, was it 14 ounces, and messing, looking and all whatever. They're paying for what comes out at the end. And in this particular stream, I've probably done more talking than I've done pyrography. So my apologies to everybody. Now, these glasses are going to have some filigree, which is white, and I'm leaving that more or less well last. just because I'm not quite sure what the colour underneath is going to be. Now you will see me as I'm doing here, dotting, jumping around. One of the main reasons for doing that is, well, there's two reasons for doing it really. One is that stop me getting bored doing one particular area, especially when it's lots of things. But as you work on something, you start to not see it in context. You get blind to colours, to shapes, such that you don't see mistakes. For example, if you watch a digital artist working, one of the things that you'll see them do quite often is they'll flip an image left to right, even upside down in some cases. I can't really do that. They do it because you get focused on one area and you don't see it in context. You can spend a lot of time and it's completely wrong, or you just don't see things. I know when I'm looking at this and when I'm doing pale areas, for example, I start to see that as white, same as this. After a while I don't see the colour, and what happens then is I gradually make it darker and darker, because as your eyes get used to the colour, and I'm thinking it still looks white and I haven't got enough colour on there, and then it becomes too dark and you've made a mess of it. So what I do is, because I can't flip this left to right, I can turn it upside down, I can turn it around, and that helps sometimes. But what I'll do is I'll just go work on somewhere else completely different for a while, just to give my eyes something different to look at, and then when I come back I go, oh, actually I've got colour in there, and that sort of thing. The third reason of the two is that the colours with monochrome images, the colours are all relative to each other. It's not the absolute colour whether it's black or white. It's how much lighter something is to what's next to it, makes it stand out. So the contrast between things. So you can look at these eyes, for example, and you'll see them as black. They're not the dark brown, and I can even see them dark brown on the monitor. So it's not the camera that's misinterpreting it, it's just your eyes seeing it, because they're so much darker than what's next to it, which is uncoloured wood. And you'll look at those eyes there around the dark, and you'll see it as white. And you'll see it as white because of the dark that's next to it. And it's not white, it's the wood colour, which is slightly off-white. And like the bridge there, that looks really white. It might even look whiter to you than the eyes are, and yet it's the same colour wood. And you can get some really weird effects. I did one of the last pyrograph images. When you were looking at the eyes, they looked greeny yellow. It's pyrography, there's no green involved, but you can get fooled by the contrast. So I am working, by sort of doing this, for example, down here. I start to apply some colour, which helps me to judge this colour, helps me to judge these colours, this one here. The hair is lighter, darker than the skin. I know that says not so. It's darker in that it's greyish, dark grey hair, so it's darker than skin. But in actual fact, when you look at that as a black and white value, it's lighter. That's why I say darker, lighter. So if I get to here and I use the same tone, then you can't see the difference. And so I would adjust one of the tones. But and I can see that this and this are. This is broadly similar to about there. So if I keep this tone across here, I'll see the side of the face, and that's appropriate because it's intended to be lighter. But so I often will do work around just to establish some of the main colours. This is probably the darkest bit of the hair. And there's some similar darker areas around. That's probably about the lightest part of the whole hair, and work through there. That's what happens when I. This is what happens when I go. What you mean? That I start actually talking and working late and things like that. Don't worry, Claire. Don't worry. If anybody that's watching in stream cares to disagree, but I think people often will stay longer even if there's nothing going on, just because of the conversation that's going on at the time. Feel free to disagree, anybody that's watching. Yeah. And until I get rid of a lot of this white area, it's going to look. It looks odd. I mean, it's a bit of a weird image in a way. All this large white blocks of colour which look flat. Your brain just kind of can't quite process it. It's a bit like a tear in a sheet of paper. Sorry, Claire. A tear in a sheet of paper that somebody stuck their head through, or it sort of kind of looks odd and weird. Once I get some colour and shaping involved, then it will start to look better again. I mean, the same thing happened with the face. Before I did the forehead, it looked kind of odd, being half a face. So I'm endeavouring to get some colour and shapes in there, and then I can start and go, you know what, this bit's a bit darker, and I need a streak of hair down there, and things like that, and then it will actually progress a little bit more as well. And that's one reason for dotting over around. It helps build it up. It can get quite boring, and not possibly for people that's watching, but certainly for me sometimes, just to sort of just work in this area. Start down here and work all the way around and around and around and around until you get to there. Have patience. I could do it that way, but why bother when I can just give up and go over there and do a bit over there for a while and just keep the interest going. But Claire, you are right. You're definitely right. It's a Monday. I've got the rest of this week at work. I'm not looking forward to that. But never mind. I think it is about time to stop for this evening. Unfortunately, thank you to everybody that's watching. And Claire there for participating in the chat, and those of you who are watching and didn't participate in the chat, that's all right. That's not a problem. I do not expect everybody to come in and talk. I go into a lot of streams, including Lost's, who was on earlier, and I just sit there and listen, watch, and I don't participate. I'm either doing something else sometimes, or I'm watching 2 or 3 streams at the same time, so I really don't expect people to chat. Nice if you do. You're welcome to do so. You're welcome to ask questions, but if you don't want to, that's okay. But what I am going to do before I finish is, I've been showing off some of the jewellery as we've been talking about the stream. I'm going to... Oh, look, that's a nice picture. Special Lady, that's called. Because it was made for a special chat. You've never seen US without... maybe so, Claire. You don't do it here, so... Oh, and there's a box chain. That's the stretchy one. And it's really strong, is that? Those are all pictures. Everything that's in that box there, pictures, is being done on stream. There's a lot of jewellery there, because we do a lot of jewellery because it just is quicker to do. Something like this is about 30 hours. A bracelet like any of those, like this is about an hour, as you can appreciate. Do more of those than I can do with those. Indeed, Claire. But all the jewellery that's there is available to be purchased, or I actually make them to order, and they're sort of examples, different colours, different styles, different lengths, sterling silver clasps if you want, stainless steel clasps. Yeah, it's all variable, different colours as well, and different styles. They are, all the ones that are there are available on the Etsy store that says zarragantart.etsy.com. I'll get that right one of these days, and you're quite welcome. Obviously, I'd encourage you to take a look. If there's nothing there that meets your fancy, then that's fine. But if there are, you're welcome to purchase. If you want, you can even see it made on stream. Zarragantart.com is my website. There is more, or as I build more into it, there's more descriptions about the individual pieces, about pyrography itself, or scraper board, or punchcraft, or carving, or whatever else the other one is, that jewellery making that I do. And there is a small shop there which I'll gradually get more stuff put in it, and some of the pyrographic pieces will go in there. Not sure they will all necessarily be available internationally, for example, because some countries restrict the import of wood products, whether it's pyrographed, cut wood or fresh wood. So I can't necessarily supply them anywhere, but things like the jewellery can. I am also slowly putting things onto YouTube. So, for example, this one, it's done. There'll be a time lapse go up at some point of this being created. There is of one of the other pieces. In fact, there's a couple of time lapses up there for a couple of pieces, and one of the a chain being made as well, I think. So there will gradually be on there. Unfortunately, YouTube won't give me my own URL just yet, but if you do a search for Zarragantart Studio, then you should find it. Take a look at it there. Apart from that, I am going to say good night. Thank you everybody for watching and for participating. Those of you have, those of you followed, that's absolutely fantastic. And I am indeed, thank you. I was about to say, if you would like to come back, obviously I'd suggest following me on Twitch. That way you can, if you let it, get the notifications when I go live. On the other hand, you can also follow me on Twitter. I got it right. Zarragantart.com. No, it's not Zarragantart.com. I got that bit wrong. I kept mixing, for long enough I keep mixing Twitch and Twitter, because of course they're very similar. And now I got Twitch and Twitter the right way around. I just got the wrong Twitter ID, which is at Zarragantart. One of these days it'll go perfect. So I tweet when I go live as well, or things like new stuff going in the shop, but not thousands of tweets a day. Don't worry about that. So close, indeed, so close. Maybe tomorrow. So talk to you tomorrow. If you just want to try and catch me tomorrow, hopefully I will be on. Work situation allowing, I'm afraid it's going to be like that for a while. But if I am on tomorrow, I should be on from about 8 PM UK time, 2000 hours UTC GMT, both the same. 2 hours 20 minutes ago here in Yorkshire, the UK, it was 8 o'clock. Do a bit of maths, that time in your time zone. If I'm not able to make it, I do put a tweet out. One reason for following me on Twitter. Thank you everybody. I am going to go and maybe practice for tomorrow night. Get it right then. Come back and see. Thanks everybody. Have a great night from West Yorkshire in the UK. Bye bye.